Josh Allen, the best quarterback the Buffalo Bills have had in 25 years. Maybe the best quarterback the Bills have had in team history. Can the Buffalo Bills really not extend him? It's possible. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Billievers Talk. My name is Joe, and welcome to this special contract extension edition of Billievers Talk, where we're going to take a look at Josh Allen's current contract and the possibility of a contract extension. Again, thank you guys for joining me. My name is Joe. If you're new to this channel, guys, please be sure to hit that subscribe button for continual Buffalo Bills and Buffalo sports content. Also, hit that thumbs up button, like this video, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills coming to some sort of agreement. Do you think it's going to happen this offseason? Do you think it's going to happen next offseason? Or is there trouble looming? Listen, recently Josh Allen was on 10 Questions with Kyle Brandt, Kyle Brandt's podcast, Kyle Brandt of the NFL Network, and the idea and the thought of a contract extension came up. And there are some words that were used in this interview, and there were some words that Brandon Beane made in a previous interview that I really want to talk about. But instead of talking about all of that, instead of talking about what's important as far as Josh Allen staying with the Buffalo Bills, everyone's blowing out of proportion the comments that he made about whether or not he is going to get the treatment or the shot or whatever, the vaccine for the current pandemic going on. And all he said is he wanted to do some research. Before he made a decision, he wanted to research it. That's what he said. Oh no, you didn't pick one side or the other. You're not the friend. You're not the enemy. You're just bad. You're just a bad person for wanting to actually do your own research, right? I mean, that's terrible. So everyone's taking that out of context and blowing that up all around Bills Mafia, all around Bills Twitter. And yet we're not talking about what they said about a contract extension. Kyle Brandt asked him about contract extension. Listen, Josh Allen was a 2018 first-round draft pick, okay? That means he's played 2018, 2019, 2020. That's 3 seasons. Do you know what happens after 3 seasons in the NFL? You are eligible for a contract extension, and yet we have not heard anything about the Buffalo Bills having a contract extension with Josh Allen. Our 2017 first-round draft pick was extended last offseason. That's Tre'Davious White, right? So now we're looking at Josh Allen, our star quarterback, the best quarterback we've had since Jim Kelly, maybe the best quarterback we've had of all time, and yet there are crickets. So what's going on? So recently Brandon Beane had an interview as well. Sorry, I forget where he interviewed, and he talked about how if a deal doesn't get done this year, they hope that it gets done next season. Okay, listen, I hear that, and everything sounds great, right? Everything sounds dandy, and we're very excited about that. But in 2018, Jerry Jones had an interview on the Dallas radio show called The Fan, right? And he guaranteed that Dak Prescott would be signed to an extension in 2018. And here we were 3 years later wondering what was going to happen. And we heard during Kyle Brandt's interview with Josh Allen what he thinks about the franchise tag. So if we go into a franchise tag, it really makes me concerned as far as how happy Josh Allen will be staying in Buffalo. Now, there are plenty of things that Josh Allen said that were the right things to say, right? The canned response type thing about how much he loves being in Buffalo, how his home's in Buffalo, and things like that. And he wants to stay in Buffalo for as long as he can. And that phrase kind of stuck out to me. Like, he didn't say he wants to spend his whole career in Buffalo. He says he wants to stay in Buffalo for as long as he can. So does that mean he wants to finish his career somewhere else? Does he have other ideas? These are things that people can either choose to read into or they can choose to forget about, right? They can choose to forget about it and say, hey, what happens, happens, and we're going to see what happens. But let's look into what he said about doing research by himself, for himself, before we let people stick a needle in him. Because that's what we should really be looking into. Please let people make their own personal decisions when it comes to the vaccine, when it comes to anything about their lives. Let them make their own decisions. What I'm worried about is our Buffalo Bills. That is what I'm worried about, and we cannot let Josh Allen out of Buffalo, okay? And I know we still have 2 years, 3 years if you include the contract extension. I understand all that, or actually 2 years now playing with the contract extension, with the franchise tag, I should say, if it comes down to that. But I really hope it doesn't come down to that, because I fear that if it comes down to a franchise tag, then we might have issues. When Kyle Brandt brought up the idea of a franchise tag, Josh Allen said, ooh, he was not happy about the thought of even thinking about a franchise tag. And again, there are plenty of ways where he sugarcoated it. He said the right things about how he wants to make himself the best quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, the best player he can be. And that's all well and good. But really, one thing that stood out to me about all this conversation between Kyle Brandt and Josh Allen. So Josh Allen was talking about how he likes to be involved in his own contract negotiations, right? There are some players who leave it all up to the agents, and there are some players who want to have a little involvement in the contract negotiations. I feel like it's good and important for all players to have some sort of engagement in these contract extensions, so that way they can set up the contract the way they want to, and they can be informed on what is going on. And Josh Allen said something that really I found interesting, and it really has me a little concerned. And what he said was, if the Buffalo Bills call tomorrow, I'd be willing to take the phone call. I'd be willing to talk to him, right? And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the key words were, or the key word I should say, is if. If the Buffalo Bills were to call tomorrow, I'd be willing to talk to him. They haven't called yet. Here we are, the off season, and they haven't called yet. After his third season in the NFL, he's ready for a contract extension. Was just second in MVP voting, and the Bills haven't called yet. The Bills haven't talked to Josh Allen at all about, hey, let's talk to your agent. Let's try to get this contract extension going. His agent hasn't called Josh Allen and said, hey, Brandon Beane called. We're talking about contract extension. What kind of parameters, what kind of things do you want in a new contract with the Buffalo Bills? You look over on Spottrack.com, they currently estimate that Josh Allen's value puts him as the second highest paid player in the NFL, behind Patrick Mahomes, the $500 million man. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens now that the NFL has moved to 17 games instead of 16. You have to pay a little bit more for that extra game. And, Josh Allen brought up a very good point about Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins and how that drug on, right? And you talk about Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott, and he said, those seem like deals that could have got done a year or two sooner and could have saved some money. Now with Dak Prescott, he stays a Dallas Cowboy, right? And that's great. But what happened to Kirk Cousins, right? He was on the Washington at that time Redskins, and then he was on the franchise tag twice, and then he moves to Minnesota, where he hasn't lived up to his potential at all, or what at least his contract says he's worth at all. Do we only want 3 more seasons with Josh Allen? Do we only want the 2021 NFL season, the 2022 NFL season, and then to use a franchise tag in 2023 just for him to move on? Because that's not what I want. That is not what I want at all. I don't even want to get to a point where, hey, we might have to franchise tag you just to get some things ironed out. Listen, I know that with the current salary situation that every team, especially our Buffalo Bills, are short on salary cap space. But that should not matter, because what you can do is you can make sure the contract extension does not start until after the current contract ends. You signed his 5th-year option. Sign his 5th-year option, and then say, here's the contract extension that goes into effect after your 5th year. Then you stretch out that signing bonus a little bit more. Now, I know Brandon Beane is not always a fan of doing that. However, then you have salary cap space for plenty of years to come when you're talking about Josh Allen. All this waiting, all this non-negotiating, have they not even picked up a phone? Even if they haven't picked up a phone and say, hey, let's talk contract extension, pick up a phone and say, this is why we haven't started talking about the contract extension yet, but we hope to talk about them soon. These are some things that worry me, right? Brandon Beane saying if it's not this year, it's next year, right? And that, things need to be good on both sides. Well, have negotiations started, and is there a conflict between the two sides? And then you hear Josh Allen and Kyle Brandt's podcast say, if they were to call me tomorrow, I'd be willing to talk to them. If you haven't called them yet, you haven't called Josh Allen yet, Buffalo, Brandon Beane, let me talk to you real quick. Let me tell you how important Josh Allen is to this franchise. You're not going to find another quarterback like Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen can be, and I think plenty of people here can be, agree with me, can be an MVP in future seasons in the NFL, can be a Super Bowl MVP in future seasons in the NFL. We have not seen Josh Allen's peak yet, and he's still pretty damn phenomenal, okay? Second MVP voting in 2020. This is something that needs to get done. Again, most of you, many of you, hopefully all of you will say, Joe, this is all smoke and mirrors. And I'm not saying that's not. I'm not saying that's not. But some of these words, like I said earlier, Jerry Jones in 2018, when he was on the radio show in Dallas, guaranteed that Dak Prescott would stay a Dallas Cowboy, that Dak Prescott would sign an extension. I don't think when he said that, he was thinking it would be 3 years later. I don't think when he said that, he was thinking that it would take this long, okay? So, for that reason, Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills should really start the contract negotiations now if they haven't already, so they can iron out details, take time to figure out what those details are, instead of waiting until the last minute and then finding out, hey, Josh Allen wants this, and we weren't thinking about that, or vice versa, and all these things get confused, and next thing you know, you have to franchise tag him, and Josh Allen's left with that sour taste in his mouth, that bad taste in his mouth, and he says, ew, you guys franchise tag me? I see how it is. Time to move on. That's the last thing we want if we're the Buffalo Bills fans. That's the last thing you want if you're in the Buffalo Bills front office. And listen, Brandon Beane will go from an A+ GM to an F in a lot of Buffalo Bills fans' minds if that were to happen. Again, let me know what you think in the comment section. Again, I might be just be looking at smoke and mirrors right now, but something to take a look at because that's the way it's presented. So that's all I'm doing. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Leave a like. And again, if you're not subscribed to Believers Talk, hit that subscribe button for continual Buffalo Bills and Buffalo sports content. I look forward to talking to you all soon. Until I do, go Bills.